We kick off the year's first broadcast with a set of big numbers. First, 20,000 to 40,000. That is the projected number of COVID cases as early as mid-month based on a model of the UP pandemic response team. But on the upside, the group expects hospitalization to just be half of that of Deltas. They also see a faster decline in cases compared to past surges.
While that has yet to happen, positivity rate or the number of those yielding positive results in tests has been steadily increasing. As seen on the red line on this chart, that has increased tenfold in the past week to 20.7%. New cases have also breached the 4,000 mark for a second day. Good evening, I'm Marisol Halili.
I'm Robbie Alampay. Welcome to the big story.
As Metro Manila shifts to Alert Level 3, local chief executives have decided to prohibit unvaccinated individuals from going out of their homes, unless for essential activities. The new rules, however, have yet to be finalized. Local governments are urged to create ordinances to enforce the guidelines. Gerard de la Peña with a big story.
This has been the new normal eating out. Temperature check, spray on alcohol, and then present the vaccination card. For diners in this Binondo restaurant, the extra steps are not deal breakers.
Mas okay po yun para safe po yung nasa paligid. Na alam mo na puro bakuna yung kasama mo.
But going out will soon become more difficult, especially for the unvaccinated. On Sunday, Metro Manila mayors agreed to limit the mobility of those who have yet to get their COVID shot or those with only a single dose. Under the new guidelines, unvaccinated individuals should remain inside their homes, except in buying necessities, going to work, or other essential activities. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos says it's all about protecting the unvaccinated, deemed as the most vulnerable to COVID-19.
Inuulit ko, ito'y temporary lamang. Ito lamang ay habang nasa alert level 3 tayo o mas mataas na 4 para maproteksyon din yung mga walang bakuna. Sana maunawaan po ng lahat ito.
Under Alert Level 3, establishments such as restaurants, salons, barbershops, cinemas, and the like are allowed to operate at 30% capacity. An additional 10% may be added for those with the Trade Department safety seal. Meetings and gatherings are also allowed, as long as capacity limits and health protocols are imposed. Face-to-face classes, however, will have to be cancelled. The new rule does not sit well with those who have yet to be jabbed.
Walang hanap buhay. Gutom ang pamilya, sir.
So paano hindi pa rin kayo magpapabakuna?
Hindi pa, sir. Dahil natatakot nga po ako dahil na-stock na nga po ako eh. Ito yung kanan ko, pari na ano na to.
The Transportation Department meanwhile said that the unvaccinated will still be allowed to use public transportation.
The Transportation Department's policy states that minors are not allowed to take public transportation. But authorities are not enforcing that just for today, to take into consideration the surge of passengers who have spent the holidays in the provinces.
The MMDA clarifies these policies have yet to be formalized. It will depend on how fast LGUs pass resolutions in their respective councils. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
How is this vaccine mandate going to affect Filipino workers in Metro Manila? That big question and more with Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III. Secretary Bello, welcome to the big story. Magandang gabi po. Secretary? We'll try to get Secretary Bello in a beat. Meanwhile, Trade Secretary Ramon Lopez says the country is set to lose the same amount it gained during the holidays now that Metro Manila has shifted to Alert Level 3. An estimated 200 million pesos is said to go down the drain because of this shift, while 100 to 200,000 workers may lose their jobs. Under Alert Level 3, capacity in indoor venues is limited to 30% for the fully vaccinated and 50% for outdoor spaces. But for the DTI, this is a necessary step to curb the threat of the Omicron variant.
Mga 200 million din yung estimate natin na possible losses, which was the gain also when we move from alert level 3 to 2. Nakikita natin ito mga 2 weeks, obserbahan natin ang numero. Alam niyo po, ang pinaka-importante dito ay yung mailayo na natin yung ating bansa sa posibleng biglang pagdami ng Omicron.
These are the other big stories tonight. The Philippines is once again classified as high risk for COVID-19 as infections continue to climb. Health officials want to assume the worst, that the Omicron variant is now spreading in communities. Quarantine skippers think twice. The PNP is set to conduct surprise inspections in quarantine hotels. And PBA fans sit tight. It looks like this week's basketball games will be postponed. These big stories after the break. Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Maricel Halili. With a new vaccine mandate in play in NCR, how is this going to affect Metro Manila workers? That big question and more with Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello III. Secretary Bello, welcome to The Big Story.
Hi Maricel, good evening, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Secretary. Sir, now that NCR is under alert level 3, will there be any changes when it comes to the vaccine mandate among Filipino workers?
There's no change. That you cannot compel the workers from being vaccinated. Unless there is a law that will be passed to require everybody to undergo vaccination, you cannot make vaccination mandatory. Very clear po yan.
So, sir, this is also applicable to booster shots as well?
Yeah, and, basta when it comes to choice, we are in a democratic country. You cannot compel somebody to do something against their will, his or her will.
Pero, sir, pakipaliwanag nga po yung policy na yun because I understand that kahit na hindi mandatory yung pagkakaroon ng bakuna doon sa mga employees, there is a mandatory RT-PCR test.
Yes, oo.
Regularly.
Yun lang ang pwedeng gawin. Hindi mo mapilit yung worker or employee mo na mag-vaccinate, pero you can require the employee or the worker to undergo PCR test before they report to office. That's another issue. So, pwede yun. So, kung hindi siya papasok, then we apply the principle of no work, no pay.
Okay.
Yan.
But should employers shoulder testing for workers reporting on site?
No, actually, it should be at the expense of the worker. That is why before the holiday season, there was a request from labor group that government should shoulder the cost of the swabbing. And when I had a short dialogue with them, I said I will consider recommending it to the President. Yun. Pero hindi po natuloy yung aming dialogue. So, in the meantime, dito mga major development dito sa coronavirus ang napagtutukan natin.
Alright.
So, hindi pa naman na totally forgone yung request na it will be government that will shorten the expense of the PCR.
Okay, so we'll get more updates on that later, Secretary. But
Opo.
for now, maraming salamat po, Secretary Bello. That was Secretary Silvestre Bello of the Labor Department. We can't say it enough. We're starting the year with yet another spike in COVID infections. This uptick has been largely expected post-holiday, but the rate of the increase has health officials believing that it might already be Omicron-driven. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
New year, old problems, new variants. COVID-19 cases rose with incredible speed in the last week. The health department says the daily average cases went up to 2,061 from last week's 308. That's an increase of almost sixfold. Even the positivity rate shot up from just 2% last December 28 to 20% on Monday, January 3. Because of this, the country's risk classification went back to high risk.
Likewise, the National Capital Region is at high-risk case classification, showing a high-risk 1-week growth rate and 2-week growth rate.
The health department said it expected an uptick because of the increased mobility from the holidays, but no one expected the uptick to be this much, and signs are pointing to the highly mutated Omicron variant.
Pero based on observation sa ngayon, ang assumption natin na andyan na siya sa community because we have seen the sudden increase in the number of cases.
The head of the field hospital, Dr. Domingo, said on Christmas Day they only had 6 COVID patients, but in just 1 week, they blew up to at least 334 mild COVID patients or 93% occupancy.
Actually, we didn't expect na ganito kabilis compared nung last surge no August to September.
Despite the spike in cases, healthcare utilization rate both in Metro Manila and nationwide are still at low risk, and majority are mild cases. Still, Dr. Itzel Salvana of the DOH Technical Advisory Working Group warned against complacency.
Itong Omicron, kaya pa rin niyang i-overwhelm yung healthcare system just with the sheer numbers.
Dr. Salvana said, while Omicron is less deadly than Delta by threefold, its highly transmissive quality and its vaccine immune escape makes it a big threat. Dr. Salvana reminds the public to get vaccinated and boosted as soon as you are qualified, because even though breakthrough infections can still occur, the vaccine still prevents severe to critical conditions. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, We Are One News.
Surprise inspections in quarantine hotels are now on the table as another traveler skips her isolation to go home and get a massage. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez gives us a front seat to the story.
Poblacion girl has been making rounds on social media this past week. Gwyneth Chua left her quarantine stay at the Berjaya Hotel in Makati only to test positive for COVID-19. Investigation shows that she may have left multiple times since she arrived.
Poblacion girl arrived on December 22 at 11:23 at the Berjaya Hotel. Less than 30 minutes later, she left aboard an SUV for an undisclosed location. Then she went back again the next day and then left at 8:30 in the evening to go to Media Hotel and Kampay Bar.
Interior Department Undersecretary Jonathan Malaya said her actions led to a super spreader event. 7 of her close contacts and at least 1 secondary contact have tested positive for COVID-19. Malaya says they are now looking into filing a case against Chua, the hotel, and possibly Chua's friends who may have been aware of her quarantine status.
We have substantial evidences already that she did this willingly and that the hotel had something to do with it.
After Chua, another woman who arrived from the US breached quarantine protocols. Upon arrival, the woman went straight to her home. She even posted it on social media and got a massage in her condo. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat said the traveler has already been apprehended. The DOT is now probing hotels that allow returning travelers to ditch the required quarantine. And to prevent future incidents, the Interior Department said that they directed the PNP to conduct surprise inspections in hotels serving as quarantine facilities.
To determine if indeed the people who are supposed to be there are there. If they're not there, to immediately investigate so that charges can be filed against those responsible officials.
Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, We Are One News.
After leading the agency for 2 years, Eric Domingo has vacated his post as Director General of the Food and Drug Administration. His resignation takes effect today, January 3. Domingo says he believes he did his part during the pandemic. He says the FDA is now stronger and more efficient with systems in place. He adds it's now time to move on to do other things. FDA Deputy Director General Dr. Oscar Gutierrez has been designated as officer in charge of the FDA.
From drag queen to karaoke queen.
Mga kaawit bahay, sing! Galing na!
RuPaul's Drag Race album, Manila Luzon, flexed her vocals as she raised a New Year's episode of TV5's Singaling.
I smashed it, broke it in half, stomped it to a million pieces. It was exciting for me. I mean, I love karaoke. I do it all the time, usually behind closed doors.
Besides Manila, Wildcards also stole the show in Singaling's Bacated. One actor-singer also has no qualms dressing in drag. That's Marky Strom you'll see in Signal Play's My Delivery Girl. In the series MediaCon, Marky says he himself got bullied for expressing himself. But the big revelation, he admitted to being demisexual, meaning he gets attracted to a person based on emotional connection regardless of gender. Being a part of the series, he says, gives voice to the LGBTQIA+ community.
Demisexual is very close to asexual. I've lost sexual interest in individuals. It's hard for me to get sexually aroused. I have to have an emotional attraction to someone to be able to hook up, either whether it be long-term relation.
The pilot episode of My Delivery Girl is streaming on Signal Play now. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Time for another quick break. When we return, got the flu? It's not just you. Customers say they are having a hard time buying paracetamol. Supply is running low in drugstores. Get ready for another big-time hike. Gas prices are set to go up by as much as 2 pesos starting tomorrow. And the PBA is on an extended break. The league postpones its games this week as Metro Manila shifts to Alert Level 3.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Maricel Halili. Since this weekend, long lines have been seen in drugstores as many try to get their hands on some paracetamol.
Demand has risen as flu season starts and COVID cases spike, but pharmacies assure stock is sufficient. Shyla Francisco with the rest of this report.
Feeling a little under the weather as of late? You're not alone. Many have been lining up in drugstores hoping to remedy some post-holiday sickness. Mercy lined up in this Pasay drugstore, her second for the day, hoping to get paracetamol for her sibling who has coughs and colds.
Walang stock. Siyempre pa, akalain namin mercury ito, hindi na mabuti ng gamot eh.
Apple also has yet to get her hands on some paracetamol despite having visited several drugstores in Manila.
Nagkakaubusan daw po doon nung nakaraan pa daw po maraming bumibili. Sobrang hirap, ma'am, kasi yun yung parang nakikita namin effective eh.
Pharmacies say supply has been a struggle since post-New Year.
These are the remaining stocks of Biogesic after some customers hoarded the supply since last night. Because of this, the drugstore was forced to limit the sale to 5 pieces per customer.
May iba po nagre-reklamo, like sabi nila, pwede bang 10 na lang, ganyan. Eh, syempre po, kailangan po kasi mabigyan lahat
para po fair din. Tumatawag na po kami sa supplier, pero ayun po, may ibang hindi sumasagot. Yun kasi nga po, wala na daw po talaga kasing stock.
The Pharmaceutical and Healthcare Association of the Philippines says demand for non-prescription drugs is high. They attribute it to the rise in COVID cases as well as flu infections due to cold weather. So is there really a shortage?
We have more than enough inventory of analgesics, ibuprofens, paracetamols in our warehouses. It's definitely an artificial shortage. Plus, it could be a shortage of well-known brands. As I said, there are a lot of different brands.
Besides this, the group also reminds the public to refrain from hoarding as drugs have expiry dates. Shaila Francisco, VR1 News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. Now that Metro Manila is back to alert level 3, limited face-to-face classes have been suspended. Metro Manila mayors convened with the MMDA and the Education Department on Sunday and took into account the rising number of COVID infections. But DepEd says areas under alert levels 1 and 2 will continue its limited face-to-face classes. Meanwhile, Baguio shuts its borders to tourists. Leisure travel requests through the city's Visita platform will be suspended until further notice. But all pre-approved tourist passes will be honored, subject to the mandatory triage. For essential travel, visitors can still register on Baguio's website. And several oil companies have announced a price hike on gasoline and diesel starting tomorrow. Prices of gasoline and kerosene will be up by 1 peso and 85 centavos per liter, while diesel will have a 2 pesos and 40 centavo increase. The Energy Department says the hike was caused by an increase in demand for fuel during the holidays.
For the big story in sports, the PBA has postponed all of its games this week after Metro Manila was reverted back to alert level 3 status. The league now awaits confirmation and further instructions from the Games and Amusements Board for the continuation of its season. PBA also notes that it will need the approval of various LGOs before play can resume. Almost 5,000 fans were allowed to return to Araneta Coliseum for the Christmas Day Manila Classical Series. PBA action was set to resume on Wednesday after a 9-day holiday break. And despite a turbulent year for EJ Obiena, the Filipino pole vaulter has cemented himself as one of the world's best in 2021. Obiena ranks third in World Athletics list of the top pole vaulters after breaking the national and Asian records in the previous year. His record-breaking 5.93 performance has him tied with the USA Sam Hendricks and Russian athlete Timur Morguno. The top two spots were given to Sweden's Armand Duplantis and the USA's Christopher Nielsen. Recently, Obiena was embroiled with the Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association over alleged irregularities over his liquidation report.
As the world deals with the Omicron variant, some Americans have jokingly confused a highly transmissible virus for R&B singer Omarion. The Icebox singer
He took to TikTok sharing a short clip poking fun at the running joke, while also subtly sharing some information on the new strain of COVID-19. In his video, Omarion stressed that he is an artist, not a variant. Omarion says he made the video after getting a lot of messages from people online.
Omarion also assured the public that should they see him on the streets, they do not need to isolate themselves for 5 days. And they definitely do not need a negative test result to dance to his music. Just to reiterate his point, it's Omicron, the variant, and Omarion, the singer.
You don't. Hi, everybody. This is Omarion. I am an artist, not a variant. So please be aware if you just so happen to run into me on the street, you don't have to isolate for 5 days, nor do you have to have a negative test result in order to dance to my music. So please, be safe, be healthy. Happy New Year.
So noted, Omarion, the singer. It's not Omicron.
Tsaka that's an early lesson for all of us. Not everything is going as planned in 2022. Pero just like Omarion, take what it gives you, you turn it to an advantage, and look, nagkamali yung mga tao. You use it as an opportunity to get the people even more.
Yes. And of course, we also would like to remind everybody to take advantage of the vaccines. Now is the time to get your vaccines and booster shots. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
On behalf of Gretchen Ho, I'm Maricel Halili. We are One News. Good evening.